two are virtual, so it's just her who will be here with us. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, please. Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Come back.
Play learning. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I would also like to point out to everyone that we have the resources at the back. So please remember that you can just take a stroll to the back and check out what our vendors and what is still left of the free corner and pick up something for your kids and yourself as well. Okay, without further ado, do we have Mr. Somi here with us? Lola, we can see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi.
Yes,
This is so nice. I love technology. Like, it's really cool. So we'll wait for Mr. Somi to join. He's in already? Lola, do you want to say something, please? Can you please speak so we can be sure we can hear you?
Hi everyone. Hi Bola. Hello Dr. Bola. Hi Somi. Hello everyone.
Okay, the volume is still not to the point where we'd like for it to be, so we're going to still need you to test your mic one more time.
No worries at all. That's fine. Let me know when it's good enough. Dr. Bola, it's interesting. You fancy catching up with you here.
Fantastic, fantastic. Fancy hearing you live, loud and clear. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have Dr. Bola here. Can you see us?
Yes.
Great. So Dr. Bola is to my left, and we'll be having Somi join us in a bit. He's here too.
Hello.
Oh, Somi.
Can you hear me?
Fantastic. We can hear you too. We can hear you. Great. FYI, Somi is male. In case, because we can't see him, so that's why I'm just mentioning that. And what I'm actually looking forward to is also hearing his perspective as a homeschooling dad as well, and how that has how the experience has been. So we'll just start with Dr. Bola, who is here with me. Could you tell us about yourself very briefly before we go on to hear from the other panelists?
Okay. So hi everyone. So glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Dr. Bola, as she said. We've been homeschooling with my husband. We've been homeschooling for 4 years, and we just started on a journey this year on world schooling. So basically, we are taking our children. We have 4 girls. We're taking our children together with my husband across the world and homeschooling. But we're starting with West Africa. So hence we what's the opposite of Jakba? We unjakbad to Nigeria as a start, to start as a base. What else? Our older 2 were in school at some point, and we've done different types of things with homeschooling. So many different types of ways of homeschooling. So I'll get to share maybe a bit more about that.
Wow, I think that's a new one for some of us here. World schooling. I've heard unschooling, I've heard other kinds of schooling, but world schooling, I'm actually eager to hear more about that experience. Somi, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, but first, can you hear me clearly, right?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right. My name is Somi Lajuomi. I am husband to Adeshola, raising ID, and father to 2 wonderful children. And I'm the founder and CEO of Winnock, a company that provides solar, lease-to-own, cash loans, and insurance brokerage services to micro businesses. So we practice child-directed learning, right? My children are still young. My son is going to be 5 in January. My daughter is going to be 3 in February. But my approach to life is more about raising well-adjusted children, wholesome children, right? Because by being a wholesome child, that's how you become a well-adjusted, best way to become a well-adjusted adult. So the schooling aspect is just one component of the upbringing from my own perspective, right? There's the diet aspect, there's the fitness aspect, there's basically health, wellness, mind development, finding their purpose, etc. But I'll touch more on it as we continue our conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's hear from you, Lola.
I think you're closer to the correct pronunciation now. Lola.
Oh, right.
So hi everyone. So a little bit about myself. Oh my goodness, I think I'll just stick to what I'm currently doing because I've done so many things, in times past. But right now I'm a student, and I think maybe I'm the opposite of Dr. Bola, right? So while she's come in, I've just recently, left the country, and I think mostly because of very similar views to Somi and their family ethos in raising well-adjusted children, in terms of their own individual lives, but I'm also around about raising children, locally but with a global perspective. So whilst at this time I haven't gotten to or unable to do, what her family are doing in terms of homeschooling, but it would be great. My vision, my preference would be to be able to just, live in different parts of the world, just to give the children that global perspective. So I have two children, soon to be 7-year-old. It's really important I say soon to be because it's telling people it's 7 for like 3 weeks now. But so soon to be 7-year-old boy and soon to be 5-year-old girl. And we have done different kinds. We've been in school full time, we've done homeschooling, we've done hybrid. I've done the homeschooling myself, I've outsourced it, so it's been a mix. I've done play-based learning, I've done, complete, let's try and, have a schedule, we've tried all sorts. And right now, where the children are in, they're in school. It's a kind of school that I have always dreamt of. And I guess, I'll go into that a little bit more just as the conversation proceeds.
Fantastic, thank you. It's actually interesting you already started telling us about your home journey. So I think we might as well just hear about your homeschooling journey. I'm hearing so many fusions. You've done the hybrid, you've done outsourcing, which I reckon you mean inviting a teacher into your home and having the teacher teach your children. You've also had to put them in school full time. So maybe take us through that journey and let's just hear what informed the decisions per time for every time you had to make a different choice for your school, your children's education.
Okay, so we started with, I had my first child, I stopped working, absolutely lovely mom and baby club, and I always because to them as the foundation of my thing of child learning, business learning, and all of that.
Okay. We'll need to check back in. Your network seems to be fluctuating on this end, so it's not very, very stable. While we wait for you to sort that out, we'll just go to Dr. Bola. Dr. Bola, do you want to take us through your homeschooling journey?
Yeah, sure. So we've done different things as well. When we first started homeschooling, we started at a time where we pulled our 2 oldest kids out of school, and we also left the corporate world, my husband and I. So we were starting a business together. So I had to figure out how to learn to work with my husband, that whole submission thing. And then also homeschool, and I was clueless. Like, how do you sit a child and learn how to read? I don't know, you just read, right? So I had to really figure that out. So we've done that. We've had different teachers. I always say we educate our children with educators. We have different educators that come into our ecosystem of education. But I think for me is always start with a vision. Cast your vision, because the who is the part of the education plan for your child, or the resources you use, those are now going to fall into place, or they're going to align with your vision. So cast a vision. Why do you want to homeschool? For us, for instance, we always think of my oldest is 8 years from now, she is going to be pop quiz 16. Thank you. And then shortly after that, she'll be 21. What kind of 21-year-old do you want to have? What kind of 16-year-old do you want to have? And how long do you want to homeschool? Are you going to try to homeschool all 16 years? Is it just the earliest? Is it like age 5 and under? So cast that vision very widely. Be very clear on that. And then start thinking, what can I do to be a part of this? And so for me, for instance, homeschooling does not mean mom has to sit and teach a child, right? So for me, I actually use an acronym, SACRED, without the E. So if you are championing these 5 parts, you are homeschooling, right? And I'm going to look at it because, I'm getting a bit older. So if you're championing the schedule of your child's education. That's the S in sacred. If you're championing the activities, that's the A. If you're championing the content, the curriculum, what they're actually learning, that's the C. If you're championing the resources, right, so that's the R. And then the last one is actually the delivery of the content. So sacred without the E. If you're championing any of that in combination, like, a few of that, you're actually homeschooling. Right? So if you, like Jeje is saying, Jeje took her child or her 2 children are in school. If she's championing the actual resources, the scheduling, the content, the delivery, in my definition, that's homeschooling. So with that definition, we've homeschooled for 4 years, but as we move through throughout the world, as we do different things, we engage people. So for us, for instance, in our vision, language is very important. So we lived in East Africa. My kids speak Swahili. We wanted them when they're in Nigeria to pick up Nigerian languages, and they're now also doing French in addition to English and American Sign Language, because I speak American Sign Language, or I sign American, you get the point. So language is one of the threads that we use through our homeschooling journey. So you need to think about, for your family, what's the vision and what's important to you. So really quick, my husband, for him, it's learning about God and the values God is teaching us about, So for him, he spends the bulk of his time every morning, 7:30 to 8:30, teaching about God. And that does not change wherever we are, whatever we do, even when we go on vacation, he does that. For me, one of my favorite things is math. And we actually use 3 curriculums in my house for math for each one of my child, except for the 3-year-old. So pick whatever, is a strength for you. For instance, I said earlier when I was doing activity, I don't like to draw. I couldn't be bothered to do all this drawing, cutting. To your question, we've done different things. We've had educators, I've taught, we've done different things.
Wow, thank you so much. Fantastic. I will come back to a question that I have on your journey, but let me hear from Jeje Lola about her homeschooling journey with her kids. Jeje Lola, can you hear us? Somi, can you hear us? Are you there? Okay. No worries. We'll still check in back.
Can you hear us now? I think we're back to you now.
Okay, Jojo Lala, yes, we can hear you. We were asking that you take us through your homeschooling journey.
I'm just now thinking, oh my goodness, this is the beauty and the pain of technology, around, what's the vision, what really do I want? I mean, so ideally, you already think, okay, you know the kind of life you want the child to have, but the path to it wasn't clear. As we progressed with pop, it was really clear to me that, the smaller the scope of his learning, in terms of, the influences etc. people now, the better. And then it was on top of that, having the second child and seeing them being completely different. And at this time, I was still, 100% at home with them. I was just like, there's no way these children are going to, I as the parent, was figuring out how to catch up, balancing the unique, like there's no way I'm going to put these children in a classroom of 6 or even 20 people, right? Because all of this, if I as their mother, I'm struggling to find that balance, how would their unique abilities be nourished, be nurtured in a bigger room? So that was when homeschooling started. And of course, whilst we were up, I learned, the different things, the importance of cognitive abilities over and above, learning to count, the importance of even within numbers, ordering, just all of those, some of those wonderful things that we hear about a lot, in this education conversations. Fortunately for me, when it became difficult to continue to focus on just both of them, the play group at the time, the Mom and Baby Club, then developed to a play group. But because I had started with them and I was so certain of what it is they were doing and I liked it very much, it was very easy for me to just, allow the children go there. We're fortunate to be the first there, so they still had a really small number. So then at the time, my son was 3 and my daughter was 1. So that was when they started going to, that was the first time they were going to a school. So that's playgroup. But a few things were helpful, with the playgroup. I had a very good relationship with the found her, so I knew what was going on. I knew what to expect, and I knew what we were getting. But as they grew older, the playgroup wouldn't go beyond a certain age. It was then the question of what do we do? So my son then went on to a project-based learning school, which was also absolutely fantastic. But, there was the struggle of the younger one. We've had certain struggles. But at some point, so my husband and I, sometimes we're thinking, let's just see. Right? So sometimes we're on the same page, sometimes we're not. He wanted us to try out the public school, traditional school system, and we tried it out, and it was torture for me from day one. It was serious torture because I'm also very, I hope I'm still audible. It says my internet connection is unstable, but I hope I'm still audible. It was torture for me because I am very, very involved, in what is to learn.
Jejolola, it's starting to break up again. Can you turn off your video? Turn off your video. Let's see if we can manage the bandwidth and if that helps. Seems okay. Somi, are you there with us? Hi, Somi. Okay. All right. Dr. Bola, seems like it's just you and. You've told us about your vision.
Yes.
You've taken us into your homeschooling journey.
Yes.
I think one of the things that is always a key question in the homeschooling community, both for bona fide members and new members, is the case of what approach do I take?
I can actually hear you well. Sorry,
Oh.
I can hear you well.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries. So, okay, let me just direct the question to you. I'm familiar with your wife's activity online because she shares a little bit of the homeschooling experience and journey with us on social media. And from what we understand, she takes on the unschooling approach. I just wanted for you to share why you decided on that approach for your children in terms of their education. Why unschooling? What does that mean to unschool your children? Because we are choosing to school our kids, but you are choosing to unschool yours. What does that mean? Why are you taking that approach? And what has the experience been for you and for your children?
Okay, thank you for that question. So, first and foremost, I think the label unschooling is misleading because the word or the prefix UN sort of indicates a negative connotation, right? So I've never really been a fan of the word unschooling, but it's actually the best homeschooling style that describes what we are trying to do, or rather, it's the best fit description for what we are trying to do. So just to also buttress on that point of homeschooling styles, right? I think people get too fixated on homeschooling styles, curriculums, etc. But when I studied different styles, I looked into unschooling, world schooling, Montessori, Charlotte Mason, etc. You will find that they are all intertwined, right? So, for example, Charlotte Mason talks about exposing the child to living books, which is more or less books from authorities in the subject rather than just textbooks, right? And also art, nature, etc. This is very similar to unschooling as well as Montessori, right? So unschooling is just a style of homeschooling that focuses on helping the child to discover their passion. In my case, it's about its purpose, because purpose is a stronger word than passion, right? So helping the child to discover their purpose. So just to confirm, just to check in, you can hear me, right? Hello?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. We can.
hear you.
All right, so I'll proceed then. So basically, the essence of, I believe that the essence of educating a child is to help them to become useful to the society, right? Because if you look at human existence as a whole, as a species, we have only been able to evolve to the top of the food chain because we have been the most productive and the most exploratory and the best co-creators with nature, right? Now, the progress that we have made as a species to have survived to today and to continue to survive is as a result of the contribution of billions upon billions of people since the beginning of time, whatever the beginning of time was, right? So my question then is, I as Somi, my wife as Adeshola, my son as Ifedayo, my daughter as Desiree, what contribution are they making to Earth to progress us as human beings, right? So the best way I can define the way to identify that contribution is through the word purpose. I'm a big believer that each and every one of us on Earth have a defined purpose, whether it's through a chosen purpose through our environment, experience, etc., or whether it's a spiritually defined purpose from God or nature, whatever your belief is. But I believe everyone on Earth knows that there is something that you are supposed to be doing on Earth, which feels truest to you, right? So that could be simply like being a lawyer, being a musician, being a footballer, even to entertain people and make them happy, being a doctor, being a financial expert, being a TV presenter, etc. But there's something that pulls in your heart, right? Strongly. Now, I believe strongly that we all know, nobody can know your purpose more than you do. And you can actually identify your purpose from a very young age. Like me, for example, I'm a businessman. From a very young age, I've always wanted to be a businessman, right? So therefore, I believe that any knowledge that is exposed to me is supposed to be knowledge that is relevant to my purpose, right? And knowledge that is helping me to become an expert in serving humanity, in serving the people around me, making the world a better place through my purpose. Yeah. So, for example, if my purpose is to be a musician, and I feel it strongly from a young age, it's actually a waste of my life to expose me to so much maths, right? That has time to expose me to so much fine art when I can be spending that time being exposed to discipline, to live my purpose and to add value to humanity. So that's our philosophy. So what are we doing? How does that work in practice? From a very young age, my son is going to be 5 in January, but from a very young age, he has always shown a love of building, right? A love of building. In fact, he loves building so much that he has developed a routine. Before bedtime, he gets all his building materials, Lego, etc., and starts to construct. We know that we allow him time to do that. He has to do that every night, right? So my wife is now looking at STEM activities, right?
Right.
Particularly a school in Guarimpa in Abuja that teaches programming to very young children, robotics, etc. And hopefully by next month or January, he will start that activity, right? And we will know very quickly and get that out of the way whether he loves building or not. If not, we can move him on to the next activity. But the goal is before he's 10 years old, he would know what he actually loves doing. And then from 10 to 20 upwards, he can start spending time becoming an expert in that, right?
Right.
So we are also exposing them to other types of knowledge. Like we read books, they do maths, there's a community where they do like nursery rhymes, etc., soft play, messy play, just exposing them to knowledge, nature, etc., but with the sole purpose of trying to help them to find their purpose. So that's what we are doing in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you. It sounds like so much flexibility and so much observation that's being done from a very early stage. And I think if I had a question, it would be that what's the difference that the homeschooling or the unschooling approach that you use, what's the difference if you had enrolled your kids in a school? Because if I recall correctly, teachers typically put a report at the end of the week or at the end of the month, at the end of the year or term, and they send that to the parent. So doesn't that still give an opportunity for you to know the areas of interest that your child would have excelled in or does excel in or has an interest in? So in your opinion, what would have been the difference if your child had been in like a traditional school, for example?
Okay, so I must say, before I answer that question, but I'll say very quickly that I'm actually not fixated on homeschooling or traditional school. I'm much more fixated on in any environment the child is. The child should be given the avenue to understand themselves and help the adults around them to understand what direction. I'm sorry, let's put it out there because I'm spiritual. What direction God wants to take the child, right?
Right.
And only the child can know that. So whether in school or homeschool, whether Montessori or unschooling, right?
Right.
Whatever environment the child is, the child has to be in an environment where they can start to understand their own instincts and help adults and help to guide adults, right? So the reality is, in traditional schools, you have a lot of children in a class, and it becomes inevitably difficult for the teacher to pay attention to each of them and to understand what their inclinations are, right? No matter how posh the school is or how expensive it is, it's just not as, you won't get, that child will not get as much quality time and attention as in homeschooling, right?
Right.
You mentioned, so that's the first aspect about quality time, quality attention. You mentioned about grading children. I find it very laughable. I'm sorry to say, right? That you take two children, let's say 5-year-old children, or let's even say 8 years old, right? You give them math questions, you tell them to write exams, and you are grading them based on what they have crammed, right? Now, let me go into a bit of brain science. Do you know that our brains develop at different stages, right? Do you know that we have different parts of the brain, like the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory? Mine might develop 3 years later than yours, right? But if you give me an exam at that time, I may not have been able to cram what you have crammed, and I may fail, but it doesn't mean I'm not as intelligent as you, yeah?
Right.
How about verbal skills? You may naturally, there are 9 types of intelligence, yeah? There are 9 types of intelligence. One of them is spatial, one of them is linguistic, one of them is existential intelligence, which is to do with philosophy. I have natural existential intelligence, right? Now, someone that has natural linguistic intelligence, from a young age, they will be very good with words, they are sharp with words, they start speaking earlier, etc. So you give someone that has natural linguistic intelligence, you give them English test, right? Versus someone that does not have natural linguistic intelligence. That person will pass, will smash it, will smash the test without even trying, right? So I think it is actually not ideal and not even great for a child's confidence, someone that is just trying to understand the world, trying to have self-esteem, self-confidence that they need as an adult to excel in the world and serve humanity properly, to now fail them based on some exam, right? That maybe their brain just hasn't developed naturally to that point to be able to pass such exam.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we actually don't believe in exams. We don't believe in gradings at all.
Okay. So Dr. Bola. Okay.
Yeah, Chairman, let me chime in on that. And before I do, can I just take a quick poll of the room? How many people are currently homeschooling their kids? Show of hands. 1, 2. Okay. How many people are here to learn about homeschooling their kids? Okay. And then how many? You only have 2 hands. So how many are then like teachers, educators who want to learn more about this space? Right? Okay. So those are 3 groups, yeah? Is anybody so we have homeschoolers already doing it, which is 40%, another 40% who want to get into it, and 20% who are teachers or educators who want to learn about the space. I just want to do that really quick because it's just good to know who you're talking to. So to answer your questions, to the 80% who are homeschoolers currently or to be, the difference in having your child in school vis-a-vis you taking authority over their education in a very progressive way, let's say, is that you get more time, more insights into that child, right? So Somi was talking about a test that we all went through school, we did tests. He talked about different types of intelligence. At the end of the day, society is always going to try to grade you and assess you as a human being. We just need to fit into some order, right? So the test will always change. But the point is, when you are progressive, you are a lot more progressive about how your child is educated. You have different ways of assessing and understanding. So you move from assessing to understanding and appreciating the kind of child you have. So I'm not testing my child to see, do you know this yet? Do you know that compared to whatever standards? It's more, who are you? right? Show me who you are, and you show me who you are in the ways we spend time together. You like to climb. You know, my 2-year-old is a climber. So we got her a Pinkler triangle. I had to Google it. Like, there's such a thing. And we built it for her, and she loved. So my goal was not to stop her from climbing, but to teach her how to climb responsibly. And because we have girls, you know, we're very cautious not to keep them away from exploring. You know, we don't want them. Our goal is not to get them to be so gentle because you're a girl, but to know what kind of person you have, you know. So one of our biggest goals in homeschooling is to understand much more what kind of child or children are you dealing with. I've gotten different types of reports, and I tell you, they tell you nothing. They tell you like 2% of what the child did, how they reacted to the environment, how they reacted to their peers, how they consumed information, how they interacted with the information they consumed, what they did with it. There's so much more to a child interacting with society and environment than, I don't care how long the midterm report can get you. So that's one of the biggest difference between putting the child in somebody else's hands and you trying to understand the gift that God has given you.
Right. Thank you so much. That's actually very an apt contribution, Dr. Bola. Jejolola, I don't know if you're still there with us. I have a question for you about the negatives that come with the decision to homeschool your kids. So whilst the idea and the concept of homeschooling is not new to us, but it may be new to our society, to Nigerians, to Africa, at large. Are there negative pushbacks that you've experienced so far on the journey, and how have you navigated those comments? Jejolola? All right, I don't know if she's there. All right, Dr. Bola, maybe you can respond to that.
Okay, so I'll be Jeje too. So I will talk about East and West Africa because we spent years in Kenya homeschooling. Kenya and Uganda, just East Africa as a whole, has a much bigger homeschooling presence for several reasons compared to Nigeria. So Nigeria is all I know about West Africa, so let's just say Nigeria. And yes, because we grew up, like I grew up, I was born in Nigeria. All our parents knew was you go to the best school and then you get a good job and then you work hard at that job and pray that evil spirits don't come against you and you lose your job, and then you make good money and then that will take care of you for the rest of your life, right? That's the idea. That's what they saw in their parents, and that's what they instilled in us. But times have changed, right? So homeschooling has gone on for years, for centuries. It's just new to us because we're now slowly unsubscribing from that philosophy, right? And it served well for some time. So we are at the spot. I know when I came back to Nigeria, my family, very quick, they already put the girls in school. And I was like, Auntie, you don't even know how old the girls are. How did you put them in school? How did you register? They must go to school. This homeschooling business is for those East Africans. Now you're home, they must go to school. And I knew better than to argue, because there are some aunties you just don't argue with. You just say, yes, ma. And then I just got my husband to talk to her, and then, but my point is that for us, it's just very new. But there's something in you that brought you to this conference, that you want to know more about this topic. And you have to be true to what that is. And you have to be willing to just diverge from society, right? Because that's who you are. And you need to nurture that which your spirit is telling you want to learn more about, right? So yes, there are the negative aspects, or negative as they would think it, they being the rest of society. For the 2% of us that's here, there's no negative aspect, right? You need to understand the child God has given you. You need to then start thinking through different aspects of well-being, right? So teaching them is one. Their health is another one, right? You have to think about the well-being as far as even the social aspect. Are they spending enough time with other children, which is important? But of course, I think from 0 to 5, majority of your time should be spent at home. Lots of philosophies show that, right? As a reason why a 3-year-old will always follow you around, we talked about earlier, they always follow you around. They're interested in how do you cut plantains, how do you cut bananas. They want to know, that's what they want to know, because that's what their spirit is telling them. So the service you do when you take them to school, you have to think about that balance, right? That being said, my actual 4-year-old is in school right now. We just started taking them to a French school. but we still homeschool, right? So they do friend school in the morning, and then they come home and do homeschool with us. So you have to just think about the well-being of the child, you know, social, spiritual, and then personal. The children need personal time. Are they getting enough individual play? So in my house, that's, you know, I say it's a village because we have 4 children. There's always noise. I need to make sure I have one-on-one time with each child so they get that space. So think about well-being on a spectrum and make sure they're getting enough of that. One last thing as far as assessment, because these aunties, they would not let me sleep. Assessment, how do you know they're doing well, right? Because the first one is social. Are they being socialized well? The second one is assessment. How do you know they're doing well? For me, I always answer that question with several things. So I went to school here in my early years, and then my family moved all over. Not once did some schools say, let me see that, you know, I'm making it up, I don't remember what school I went to. Let me see that QC primary school, you know, certificate, that diploma. Once they stamp it, Yaba primary school, yes, you come in. Nobody cares where you went. Nobody cares. What they care about is, do you have a curiosity about you? Do you love to learn, right? So me going to Harvard was not because I went to QC. They don't know QC. But are you a curious person? Like, do you ask questions? Do you want to change the world? Do you want to know about the world? Are you going to make a contribution? Are you a change maker? That's what's important. So I always tell my auntie, and it's so good, thank God for Harvard, because that shuts them down. Harvard didn't ask what school I went to. Harvard never asked what age did I learn to read or write. Harvard just wants to know, do I love to learn?
Right.
That's what's important. And if you can just instill that value in your child, engage them in learning, that I think is the biggest thing you can give them, in addition to virtues and values too. But
wow, thank you. If I'm picking up anything that is consistent with the contribution so far from you, from Jejolola and Somi, is the flexibility that the homeschooling option gives to parents. It's also the uniqueness of your reality. So for example, you just said one of your kids is in school. You've also, for Jejolola, she's had to put her kids in school at some point. She's had to take them and homeschool full time. So I think if there's anything we can learn is that flexibility and the decision at the end of the day is yours to make. It's so easy to say, oh, I want to program my homeschooling, approach to Tommy style or to Jejolola style or to so-and-so style. But I think you need to understand that what it gives you is that flexibility to be able to make the decision that works best for you and for your children and for your family at large. So Jejolola, my question to you, hopefully you can hear us. Can you confirm that you can hear us? Yes, it looks like you can hear us.
You can hear me now.
What are some of the unique challenges that you've had to face with the homeschooling journey, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Okay.
If you have.
So I heard unique, and how have, I'm just going to try. Challenges. What are some of the
challenges you've had to face? Challenges, yes.
So I think the most recent, I'll go with my most recent challenge, and that was when I had to go back to full-time work. And with that, it was then a case of, do we go back to school? I really didn't want them to go back to school. We had a thing going and it was working for us. What helped is, and I think this is one of the points I wanted to make from the beginning is, and I don't know if maybe this can apply to anyone now or maybe a new parent, what has helped us is the foundation. We started from the very beginning. I was speaking earlier about how we started taking Nathan to that Mama Baby Club and all of the things I was learning at the time, at the age of 6 months. So because we already had that foundation, because of all the time that I had spent with them, and again, because like Bola and Somi have mentioned as well, because our goal, our vision as the Makobaba family was clear to the 4 of us, it was easy to then request and find the help that needed and fit our family. So when I first got the job, I was working at home. I was working from home. But then very quickly, the office started opening up. I needed to go in, and it was just a case of, how am I going to be able to, balance this? But I reached out to the people in the network, and I found the help. And bless her soul, it turned out to be someone who who used to work in the play group at the time when we started. So I also had the confirmation and the assurance that, she understood the ethos, she understood the goal, and she understood our style of learning as well. So again, for me, I'm very proudly a helicopter mom. I know people say don't be. I am a helicopter mom. I'm not ashamed to say it at all. So I always want to know, and I think someone mentioned, reports and assessments earlier on. You see, those things when you come back and they say, oh, your child did this, your child did that. Even with homeschooling, even with me and the kind of person that I am, we have a WhatsApp group where I'm like, okay, this is the plan. What happens to the videos, photos, etc. But there's still things that I hear from the children after their day with them that wasn't reported. So which takes me back to if we're in school, how much of your child's life are you really able to catch on to? Right. In a 3-line report, really, or even maybe the 10-page report at the end of the term. So back to how we resolved this, we did find help, and I was honestly, I have to say that I'm really, really blessed with the ladies that fit into our family and carried on teaching. The other thing is, like Bola said, know what you want. So if you want to do language and do it well. If you want to do arts and craft, do it and do it well. And like somebody said, if you've also found the strength of the child or the interest, if it's in building, then you start finding the things that that help you build that up. And I would add on to say, if there are also skills that you are aware of that you'd like to expose them to, they may never have known it, but you're like, let me even see, find a way to make it happen. So for us, homeschooling in August, when everyone else was on holiday, I said, what, let's leave everything. When I have no English, nothing, I don't even, that's not important. For me, once the cognitive skills are there, like Bola said, once you're curious to learn, once you can ask questions, once you can talk, you can communicate. If you like, don't even touch math for 3 years. I know that when you pick it up, you will learn it. Once you're able to process a thought, right? So in that month, we decided and said, you know what, we're only going to do 2 things this month: swimming and rollerblades, and that was it. So swimming was 3 times a week, rollerblades was 3 times a week. And I saw my children go from never seeing a pair of rollerblades before, not even, I can't even think maybe they saw it on the TV or anything. Never seeing a pair of rollerblades before in a 5 to 6 week period, the kind of moves that they were making. But you see, this is the power of A, flexibility, because I had the flexibility to make that choice. B, consistency and focus, right? So we picked something and we did it. So in terms of struggles, some of the struggles then is something like this. I would have said, maybe they have to go to school, or they're not doing PE, or they're not doing this if we're homeschooling. But I remember there was a time I had, conversations with a series of people, and I'm like, based on what you do, how can homeschoolers, benefit from your expertise? And it then opened my eyes, and I think maybe the eyes of a few other people, that look, you don't have to be in a classroom to do arts and crafts or to do music. So many people provide one-on-one services for these things. So from us as a family, those were some of the struggles. Like if you're not in school, then I can't do piano, I can't do art, I can't do rollerblading, I can't do karate, but you can. That's the truth. And the truth is, there is help. There's help in terms of finding a tutor, and you can find a tutor that suits your style. So it's just about reaching out to the people who can plug you into the required help.
Interesting. Thank you so much. I actually like that. There is help. You just need to be willing to find the help, and you will get it. And I think that's one of the advantage that the homeschooling conversation gives to us, is that it gives you the access. You have access to a number of homeschooling parents who are doing what it is you want to do or you are already doing, and you can always access the other resources that they have within themselves. Now, my next question is to Mr. Somi. I'm hearing questions. Dr. Bola talks about how they moved from East Africa and they're now in West Africa. I don't know where next they're going to. For some person who is listening, it may be like, oh my God, this sounds like a lot of money going in. Jejola is saying that they had to do the Japa route, so like they're not in Nigeria. You are saying, oh, your wife is the one who takes the kids and they're exploring the world, and your son is now doing a project-based sort of approach to his learning. It all sounds very financially intensive, but then there's also the other part about homeschooling that it almost feels like sometimes you have to give up two streams of income, or a particular aspect of the income coming in from both parties. How do you explain this to a parent based on your reality? What would you say to that conversation, or to the person who has those concerns? How has that worked for you? What would you recommend that they consider, in their own approach or in their own journey?
Okay, that's a question that only the parents can answer, but they have to answer it confidently, right? And remove fear. I think fear sometimes cripples us, and then they also have to remove comparison, right? You have to assess where you actually are in your own journey financially, even your relationship with your partner. There are situations where actually the other partner might not support homeschooling, right? So the nuances are many. But if the question is particularly to say about the cost, right? It applies to anything in life. So for example, if you want to start a business, like you feel like this business is really, really going to be successful, right? But you don't have the money. Yeah. Would you just say you're going to give up? No, you wouldn't. So it's about being resourceful ultimately, right? So for example, when I was growing up in my area in Egbeda, I grew up in Lagos, Egbeda. I remember we used to play with leaves. I can't remember if they were cassava leaves, but these leaves that basically look like this card, 3 sisters, right? 3 leaves. It has 3 parts, the leaf. Okay. When you hold the leaf and you're running, the leaf starts spinning like a fan, right? So I started thinking maybe that can tell me something about how the plane flies, can't it? So don't get fixated on I have to be at in France and also have to be in New York or to be able to teach my child. That's all hogwash and nonsense. In fact, let me tell you that the things that the child needs to learn is present everywhere around them, right? If I step outside my house now, there are so many things in nature that I can use to teach my child. I can basically take stones and start counting and use it to teach him maths, right? I can pour water on the floor and let him watch the sun dry the water and teach him the concept of evaporation, right? So don't get fixated on, I need to spend so much money. I think it's hogwash. By the way, there's also DIY, right? My wife is the queen of DIY. Even though it looks like she's spending a lot of money, a lot of it is DIY, right? She does science experiments with my son, and they take lime, they take different materials, and before you know it, you have a science lab that even Einstein would be jealous of, right? So I think the main point is don't copy people, please. Focus on your own journey, focus on your own pocket, and try to be resourceful within the minimal resources that you have. Might I also add finally that by being resourceful, right, you're also teaching your child to be creative.
Right.
You are teaching your child to be creative. So yes, if you are fortunate to buy ready-made materials and to be able to travel around the world, which by the grace of God we can do that too, right? But it's fine, but there's a positive angle to also using as little materials as you can to develop the resources you need. It's the idea of creativity, teaching your child to be resourceful.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Bola, what would you say has been the most rewarding? What's been the most rewarding feeling or gift or experience on your homeschooling journey with your kids?
Sure. Let me just touch on what you asked me about cost, because I think people do think you're gallivanting, you have black card. Like coming to Nigeria, for instance, was a one-way ticket for each of us. We didn't know what was next. It wasn't like an open ticket. But I think, similar to what Sami's saying, there's sacrifices you make. There are sacrifices. And I think in most homeschooling families that I do see, there is one parent who kind of spearheads it, right? So at some point, you will, for the most part that I've seen, that one parent has had to give up a full-time work in a corporate setting, right? And it might be just for a period of time, a season. But I will also say that if you just stop there and say, you know what, I can't work, I have to spearhead homeschooling for my family. If you just stop there, you are doing a disservice to yourself and your family. Because I really believe everybody has in your hands, you have gifts that you can give. You don't have to structure your gifts to 9 to 5 in an office, right? So one of the ways we're able to travel is because I had to really shift my mindset from that and move away from get a job. That's what they told us, get a good job. And I had to move away from job to think about what else could I do? Like I have a gift of gab. I can talk and talk and talk. Can we monetize that in some way, in a flexible way, so that we can then use that money in a way to homeschool our children? So I just want you to just push yourself a bit. Yes, there might be a season where you have to give up full-time full-time work in an office, but it's for a season. Don't stay there.
Right.
Don't stay there. Find ways, find the gifts that you have that you can then use to monetize, yeah? And secondly, find groups. One of the things that we do as we homeschool, wherever we are, we find groups. Find somebody you can do art with. It was a time I didn't have a teacher because like I said, art, cutting straight, glue, not over here. So I had to find someone to come do it. So I knew that I wanted my kids to do it with other kids, because I think art is fun when everybody else is gluing their head, and also history. History is much more fun when you're discussing things, and science. So I got together a group of 10 kids will come to my house, and we call it Ash Lab, and we do art, science, and humanities or history together. So find homeschooling brethren and sisterins that you can do this with. Yes, right. I took it all the way to, I don't know what kind of church that was, but find homeschooling communities. That's why I love what Tomilola is doing here, bringing you together, bringing everybody together here. Find people that you can do this with, because that's part of the asset that you have. Right. That's part of what's in your hand. So to your question,
yes,
the hardest part. Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
The rewards.
So rewards. Yes. So this September. So moving to Nigeria has been really tough for my family. Really, really, really tough. Much more worse. Is that no? That's not. More worse is not it. Let's try again. It was a lot worse than we thought it was gonna be. Right? So, but in September, I felt a pulling in my spirit that I need to actually put more into homeschooling. And I was like, how? I'm trying to run the household. I think for a few months, I didn't have any help. I was cleaning, teaching, baking, ironing. I was like hunched over, ironing, doing all that for a few months. And it was really hard. But in that same season, I felt like I needed to do more. And I was like, how? There's only, where's that 25th hour, God? Give me that 20. And he was not answering. So anyways, in that season, though, I chose to spend more time doing different types of curriculums for math. And just seeing my child sit there, my second born is a kinesthetic learner, so she moves around. She will not sit the way I'm sitting. Every time we do math or history, we have to dance it. She has to move around. But just seeing her come alive to addition, multiplication, or seeing I mentioned my 4-year-old is in school. So she's at a French immersion school, and the teacher told me, they're doing French, they're doing math. I do everything in French. They're doing math, but the way they do it is comparison, because in their class, they're thinking she's 4, you do a few more than, a few less than, that's the math they're doing. But they said that my child was able to add, but also then add in French. Mind you, she was only in the school 2 weeks. And they do everything in French. There is no Oyinbo at all. So she had to learn the French and then learn the math, but she surpassed what they were doing. And they were so impressed that she could actually pick this up and then show her peers about math and addition. So of course I was like, I'm the math teacher.
It's me.
So I think for me, the most rewarding thing is just to see your child come alive.
Right.
Because you spend some time saying, let's get plantain chips. 2 plantain chips and 2 plantain chips make 4 plantain chips. I slept well that night. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Can you please appreciate Dr. Bola for that? Thank you. That's just really beautiful. And I think it just points to what, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Toby that had said when we had the other session earlier, where she's a teacher, and she was saying that there's just that very clear distinction between the kids who are homeschooled and those who are in typical traditional schools. Most times the output, the learning that the homeschooled children display is always much more different and, do I say, elevated than what it is you find in traditional schools. So that's just really fantastic to hear you collaborate what it is you just said and validate that understanding. So we're going to hear from Jeje Lola. What has been the rewards for you on this journey of homeschooling with your kids?
My kids, right? So just like Bola, before I take that question, I wanted to also say really quickly, just about the cost. It's being here at this point in our life and our journey is an opportunity that has come our way, and we're taking it. At the beginning, we couldn't afford it. We weren't planning towards it. We weren't going to do it. I've done counting. Count agbalumo seeds. So when agbalumo is in season, we collect the seeds, we dry them, we save them. I'm sure Miss Tonia or maybe any other early years educator there will tell you about sound. So we will make sound, we'll pour the seeds down, just to let you know that, like Somi said, everything the child needs to learn is around them. And the punchline, or the really important thing for me there, is what it is you want to do. Start doing it. Wherever in the world you find yourself, you will then continue to do it. So I knew that I wanted to travel the world. I knew that I possibly wanted to live somewhere else, but it wasn't my goal. The goal was, let's raise the children and let's educate them. Now we have the opportunity to raise them somewhere else, and we're able to do that. So let the finances, the cost of being able to do whatever, not be the driving force of the education. Whatever it is you find around you, start on that, and then you can, jump on whatever opportunities life presents, years down the line. We started homeschooling 7 years ago. This is only in the 7th year that we've been able to, go anywhere with them for any kind of foreign schooling. So now back to the question of rewards. It's when I did it personally, it's seeing. My son said to me 2 days ago, he says, oh, they say I'm a math machine. I know this sounds similar to Bola's. And I said, oh, why did they say you're a math machine? And he says, oh, because they were asking me this and that. And for me, again, and now, technically, he's a year 2 child, by the school standard. He's in year 2. When he came in here, it was like, oh, we can't put him in the year 2 group, blah, blah, blah. They had to put him with the second group, which is 3, 4, and 5. Anyways, by the time he went forward, they started taking him to the older class for certain subjects. And just going back, I remember, back to the point, sometimes you have to give something up, that income isn't coming in, all those hangouts, the networking, the things that you like to do as a career professional, you're unable to because you're covered in paint and you're cutting cardboard and all of that stuff. But when people come in and they say, how old is your child? He sounds like an adult. He's talking like this. All this vocabulary, where is it coming from? Man, it's coming from days and nights of reading and explaining the meanings of words and having conversations, real life conversations. I remember one time, even before he started talking, I was talking to him and someone said, why are you talking to him like an adult? He's only a baby. But I've never had that thinking. I've always spoken to my children, even when they were still babbling, just using those words. So when people say to me now, how are they so knowledgeable about certain words? How do they understand these things? It is from all of those times where, I haven't been able to interact with other people, my peer, but I've been interacting with them. I've read books to them at night, during the day. I've explained concepts to them. I've carried them along in our daily life. We're going to the grocery store. You're seeing the process of life itself in our lives as adults, and I'm also allowing you enjoy it as children, and I'm being a part of your life as a child. And I'm just letting you see the fact that there's no child world and adult world. We're all humans, right? So so when people come and say, how have you been able to do this? And I just realize that, look, all of that time, all of that effort is not in vain. And, it's also when, again, there's no report card anybody can give you, right? So someone comes and say your child carried first, carried second, carried third. But when you know that you sat down, a completely brand new concept, you broke it down to the child, and the child goes somewhere and applies it, then you're like, yes, even me. Nobody needs to appreciate me for Teacher's Day. Me, I'm appreciating myself.
Right.
So for me, those are the rewards. Those are the rewards. It's just saying that all of that effort you put in, it's working. Something is coming out of it, and people around you, which really is the validation of learning in life, right? It's saying that, look, we can see that this child has gone through some kind of learning, and all of that learning was at home. Those are my rewards.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's hear from Somi. Somi, would you give us your own input into the rewards that you've experienced, that you've seen in the homeschooling journey for your children?
Okay, so I'll rephrase the question for myself so that I can answer it like the way I see it, right? Is that actually it's not about me at all. It's about my children. So the question is, what reward have my children gotten, right? Through this homeschooling journey? Because for me, I frankly don't care if let's say assuming my son is being graded, right? If he's getting A's in subjects that he actually enjoys and is seems to be naturally good at, but F's in the other subject, I don't care if every other parent's child, right, is getting all straight A's. That's not my concern. It's the fact that my son is developing in areas that he has interest in, and my daughter as well. So it's not about what reward am I getting, it's about what reward are they getting from this process. So my daughter, like I said, is younger, my son is older, it's going to be 5, so I can start to see the effect on my son already. And I think the reward for him is actually self-awareness, right? For his age, he's very, very self-aware. So I'll give you 2 examples of how I know he's self-aware. There was a day that he was asking me for something, I think to buy him a car. He's really into cars as well. And I was teasing him that, oh, don't worry, you better start working so that you can add value to humanity, right? Mm-hmm. And when you get older, and then when you're working, you can have enough money to buy as many cars as you want when they pay you for your service. And so I went out, it was just a casual conversation. I came back and he just said to me that, Daddy, I know what I want to do with my life now. I said, what do you want to do? He said he just wants to build, right? So that conversation, he could understand the concept of adding value and getting paid for it. Mm-hmm. Nothing beats that, in my own opinion, right? No amount of learning if you can recite up to 1,000, yeah, mm-hmm, versus having that self-awareness, nothing beats that. The second example is myself and my wife tend to analyze the world a lot, right? We tend to talk about geopolitical issues, etc. And sometimes at the dinner table, I turn to him and I say, Ifedayo, do you know what we are talking about? And he would say, yes, yeah.
Oh, we can't seem to hear you. You're talking about?
He has a place in that world and a duty in that world to me. So has been the reward so far.
Do you want to take that again? We lost you when you said you were having some discussion with him at the dinner table.
Yes, so I was saying that I asked myself and my wife, anytime we are discussing issues at the dinner table.
Yes, please go on.
4 years old, going to 5 in January, and the fact that he knows that he's a part of the world and he has a duty in the world, right, to participate and contribute is.
Oh, your line is breaking there. Your line is breaking.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so again, you might need to take that again about the conversations at the dinner table.
Yes, so I was saying that at the dinner table, when me and my wife are speaking, right, and we are talking about life in general, when I turn to my son and I say to him, do you know what we are talking about?
Yes.
He says, you are talking about our world, right?
Right.
So he has a concept of the world at 4.5 years old. He has a concept of the world. He has a concept of a duty in the world, right? To me, that's what will steer him to learn something and see how he can contribute.
Right.
And then naturally, those subjects that he needs to learn to be able to build, he will naturally be drawn towards them and want to excel in them. Mm-hmm. Because without learning them, he cannot build, right? He cannot achieve his purpose. He cannot contribute to the world. So to me, that's what approach, that's the reward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we're going to just take the very
short...
If
I can just add one more point.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, just quickly. For me, please, I think parents, we need to realize that parenting is not a competition, right? It's not a popularity contest. It is not Nigerian Idol, right? It is like nursing. Your children are like your patients, yeah? So you look at their various pathologies, which is their purpose, and you try to treat it, which is nurture the purpose, right? So that it can be wholesome, which is being well like a patient. So like a nurse, don't put yourself before your patient, right? Mm-hmm. Your children, you are there to guide them. You are not there to show them off like a gift, like a prize that you have won.
Right. I feel like, that's very valid advice, but I don't know. I feel like that's just something that's inbuilt in parents. Like a part of being a parent is having that license to showcase your child and say, yo, look what I did. That's me. Like that's so yeah, we take your advice under advisement. But I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions to direct to our panelists. Do you have any question you want to ask them? Are there questions? Are there any questions that you want to send to our panelists? I know our amounts are busy, but it would be nice to hear our own other perspective. All right, I think we have a question there. Do you want to come forward and take the mic? Thank you. If you have any questions, please indicate, let's know so we can direct them to our panelists.
Okay, my question is, okay, first of all, I'm Tola. I'm not here because I have kids yet, but I had work to do. But my question is primarily around how you decided in the decision-making process. So before you started having kids, how were you able to have this conversation? Because you know it takes two to tango. So when you're able to, how are you able to discuss this with your partner and decide that this was something that you would both do? Because I think it's not just dependent on me. So far I've had so much knowledge gained, and I feel like it's something I might want to explore if I do decide to have kids. But it's like, how are you able to convince your partner that this is something that, or do both of you have to be in sync for it to work?
I'll answer briefly, and
Okay.
I'll pass on to people who probably have more
Right.
online. So for me, I wasn't, well, my husband and I were not one of those people that we're going to homeschool, once we have children. Like a few people are here already, they want to learn more about homeschooling because that's what they intend to do. That was not me. I was part of that, drop them off somewhere. Somebody would teach them so I can go make the money because we got to make money. But I think there was a point that we realized that our then 4-year-old, she was 3-ish, she would come home and just had a horrible attitude. She was exhausted. She was part of that group that Toki was talking about. We had to get a driver for her to go to school in Nairobi. It was across town, but it was a really beautiful forest school. It was like the best thing ever. So we made sacrifices for her and her sister to go. But she would come home exhausted with an attitude and it was horrible. So we both assessed and thought something is off because it's a great school. And so we started looking around because she's 4 too. So we're thinking about what's next. So we started looking at different schools, and we realized that my husband and I love asking questions. And the more questions we asked, the schools they weren't up to par, and they were asking for a lot of money. So for the value we thought we would receive, it just wasn't making sense, And for me, I have champagne taste, Coca-Cola budget. So you cannot try to sell me champagne. It's got to match up. So that started our conversation, and we looked at all our Excel. We ran out of schools. So we thought, you do it. Well, you do it. And we started learning. Luckily, my husband's sister is an educator. And she's lived all around the world. They live in Ghana right now. And she's always homeschooled her children, and she's always taught other children. So we started talking to people like that. So if you think you're interested, start talking and also understand what kind of partner you have. If it's a partner that needs to see data, then pull out the data. If it's a partner that needs to talk about values, then talk about values, Because I do think that it would kind of make sense that you're both on the same page, because that child will be confused if you're not. So I do think that you need to be on the same page.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bola. Jaja Lola, do you want to respond to that question?
So very quickly, so homeschooling also came upon us. We didn't plan it. And I think we're one of those families that somebody referred to earlier. We haven't always been on the same page. My husband prefers, traditional school, be with other children, get the grades, all the assessments, all of that. I'm more of the, I guess, thinking on the other side. But as he saw the results, as he saw that, okay, well, the progress is here, we didn't disagree, to Bola's last point, we didn't disagree to the point where the child was confused, but he wasn't really, I was certain of the results that would come out of it. He wasn't certain, and I needed to show him that certainty, I think is what it is. But I think the blessing in it is he allowed it, so we didn't have any friction or anything that, just caused, back and forth with the child or anything. But he allowed it. He was a bit concerned about the back and forth and the different styles and all of that. Just wondering how it was, from the child's perspective, how is this affecting the child?
Yeah.
But over and above all of that I stayed committed, and I I stayed committed not only to the process, but also to research and really thinking through. So it wasn't something I did absent-mindedly or anything like that. So for the efforts that, he saw me put in, for the results he saw in the child, for his understanding of the concerns and issues that I would take, at every point in time, he was understanding and he understood the reason for the different decisions. So, I would say if you're in a position to have the conversation, I didn't get a chance to have a conversation or think about it. But if it's something that you can have a conversation about now, yes, go for it. But yes, sometimes it can be dicey. If you're on the same page, it's great because you do need that support, the financial decision that we're able to do with only one income, if it's going to involve a lot of trips and going around, do I want to deal with the security? There's so many things that are in there. But then again, there are so many things that are in making the decision around what traditional school to put your child in. So I think it's the same thing, really. The same way you would sit down and decide, is it primary school A, B, or C, is the same way you would decide, is it homeschool style A, B, or C.
Right.
It's great when you're on the same page, easier, but I think you can also do it without necessarily being 100% on the same page. Please don't involve the child on the difference in page. Like Bola just said, let them not be confused.
Right. Thank you so much. So, Somi, as we wrap up the conversation, unless you wanted to add to the responses to the question that Lola had asked earlier, or Tola had asked earlier, otherwise, any final words for those who are connecting both online and those who are here with us in the room?
Okay, so my final words are these, right? The
Yeah.
biggest thing that people talk about when you're talking about homeschooling is the social issue. Will my child socialize, right?
Mm-hmm.
And food for thought for you, if you are considering homeschooling, or if you are homeschooling, is one, if you ask those people, have they actually come across a child that has been homeschooled? They'll most likely say no, they haven't, right? So
Right.
what are they basing their fear on?
Mm-hmm.
And the second question to consider on that point is, have you never come across somebody that went to a traditional school, right? But still isn't social?
Right.
I would say that's something that is common to where somebody has gone to a traditional school but they are not social. So therefore, homeschooling then is not the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is that there are different reasons why somebody is social or not social. You can actually be naturally less social. Let me not use the word antisocial, less social, right? Mm-hmm. On the extroversion spectrum, yeah? That's normal. And that might even be a good thing because 90% of entrepreneurs are actually introverts, right? Then the second thing to consider is that perhaps that child might be suffering from social anxiety, right? Which is a slight mental disorder that then one needs to take active steps, whether homeschooling or traditional school, to help that child resolve. But homeschooling is not automatic antisocial behavior.
Right. That's actually very valid to point. Thank you so much for that input. Jejolola, what are your final thoughts?
So I would like to share final thoughts just based on my personal experience, and this is to say to anyone who is struggling with, should I quit my job? Should I continue working? I've done both. I've homeschooled full time by myself. I've homeschooled, being blessed by, good support. I've homeschooled, with a teacher coming in, even though I was there, and I've homeschooled being 100% absent. And when I say 100% absent, it was maybe not seeing my children 2 days in a row. But if your desire or if your circumstances or whatever reason you have decided not to put your child in another room with a group of people and you want that education to mostly be done at home, the point is it is possible. Find the right connections and ask the questions. I remember the first time I met Bola, she said to me, I'm always asking, she's like, oh, where can I get this? Where can I get that? Where can I get this? If you keep it to yourself, you most likely won't find the help, right? But there are people who can help you have the education you want for your child, whether or not you're not there. It's happened for us for a whole academic year, and I'm super grateful for it. So this is to encourage anyone who maybe is thinking about quitting a job or excuse my guests, thinking about quitting a job or just wondering how to balance it all. It's doable. It's just finding the right plug. You can do it either with a corporate job, you can do it running a business. Tommy's running, I think Tommy runs 2 businesses, I think, right? Or, she's doing things. So it is possible, and, just be encouraged, and find the support is key. Find the support, find your community, first to feed the things you need, and then to help you as a human just, rejuvenate, do the things you want to do, all of that. So support, and you don't have to give up your what's the word now, corporate career to homeschool your child. That's the key thing I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. I mean, what's a homeschooling conversation without our homeschoolers making an appearance? Hello, little one. So, Dr. Bola, let's get your final thoughts.
Where's Nathan? Hi, Elizabeth. I think for me, final shot. I think take time, use homeschooling or your desire to homeschool, or even your current status as a homeschooler, or even your current status as a teacher interested in homeschooling, to think about the kind of family you want to be a part of, right? Think about the future. I want to end with what I started with, which is casting a dream. Think about what kind of family you want to be a part of, and your family vision and your family governance system, right? Because I'm a very top-down kind of person. So think about that level, and then think about the vision you have for your family, and then the educational philosophy that aligns with that vision, and then resources, because I think we start with what curriculum, and that to me is the wrong question. First of all, who are you? Even when she gave us that exercise to do, my first question is, who are we making this thing for? Because if you give me a piece of paper for an 8-year-old versus a 12 versus a 3, it's very different. So who is this person that you are stewarding, that you're helping to raise? And then walk backwards to resources. And then, yes, ask questions. Jeje knows I peppered her with questions when I first moved here, because I didn't know that many people homeschooling, so I was just asking questions. And I think for me, to what Sami was saying, don't focus on what the naysayers are saying. I always call them aunties. In my head, they're all aunties, because uncles don't speak up. But aunties, they always want to tell you how to run your life. So, these aunties, I would say, if you think about it, I've really been honored to meet a lot of homeschooling families, and especially homeschooling children. They're not children anymore. Yeah, people who are now in careers who were homeschooled. I've met so many, and one thing I can say is they're very confident, creative change makers. And they stand out. And I keep talking about Elon Musk, because that's, to me, is what, if you've met homeschooling adults, I know a lot of this conversation here has been age 5 and under, I think. But if you think about homeschoolers who've gone through, and I've met a lot of them in university or after university who are working now, they are the most confident, creative change makers I have ever met. They just know who they are, they know why they're here, they know what they want to do, and they're not afraid to just, and if you're in the way, they will move you out. They're not thinking, was I socialized well? Am I, And I think Albert Einstein was also homeschooled. There's so many. So if you feel like you have, or you want to, raise as part of your family governance a child that way, then do it. Do it, because you're not going to sleep well at night. So might as well just do it.
Right. On that note, we bring the conversation to a wrap. A round of applause, please, to our panelists. Thank you so much, Dr. Bola, Jejedola, and to Somi. Thank you very much for your time. This has been really, really insightful, very educative. So many learnings for me, so many unlearnings as well for me, and I imagine this is the same for you. So thank you again. We really appreciate you making up the time to be a part of the Homeschooling Conversations 2022. Once again, can we please appreciate our speakers as we head back to our seats. So we have one more conversation. Bye, thank you. One more to go before we call it a close on today's activity.